Hello. A lot of you I know. Those that I'm Bennett. I'm the teacher and proud teacher and director of this production. This is our fifth annual. Can we turn down the music a little bit? Thanks. Our fifth annual drama production, and we are doing Agatha Christie's The Mousetrap, as you know. It's quite a production. I have to make a couple quick announcements. No, please turn off cell phones. I would normally, in a normal theater audience, say, no flash photography, none of that. I have learned through brutal, painful experience that when you tell parents who come to a school production that they can't take pictures of their children, it's not an intelligent thing to do. So I'm not going to do that. This is a whodunit. So we are doing something that we've never tried before. In the intermission, there'll be a 10 to 15 minute intermission. We will have boxes out there with the different characters in the play, their name, and we encourage you to put money in there to see which character you think did it. And the prize, however, for those of you that guess it, is the fact that you were able to guess it. And I don't think it gets much better than that. So, but the money goes to support the program for next year and make us feel wonderful. So I don't think there's much else to do. They don't like me to give you the cheesy thing about how proud I am of them and that each year they do really well. So I won't say how proud I am of everybody and the fact that they do so much hard work to bring this to you for your enjoyment, because I try to honor their requests. So I did not say that I'm very proud of this group and the hard work they did. So without any further ado, The Mousetrap.
And according to Scotland Yard, the crime took place at 24 Culver Street, Paddington. The murdered woman was a Mrs. Maureen Lyon. In connection with the murder, the police were anxious to interview a man seen in the vicinity wearing a dark overcoat, light scarf, and a soft felt hat. Motorists are warned against icebound roads. The heavy snow is expected to continue, and throughout the country there will be a certain freezing, particularly at points on the north and northeast coast of Scotland.
Mrs. Barlow? Mrs. Barlow? Bert, it's cold. Oh, it really does look nice. Oh. How stupid of Giles. Gosh.
Molly? Molly? Molly, where are you?
Doing all the work, you brute.
Oh, there you are. Leave it all to me. Shall I stoke the opera?
Done.
Hello, sweetheart. Your hands are cold.
I've only just come in.
Why? Where have you been? Sure you've not been out in this weather.
I had to go down to the village for some stuff I'd forgotten. Did you get the chicken netting?
It wasn't the right kind. I went on to another dump, but that wasn't any good either. Practically a whole day wasted. My God, I'm half frozen. The car was skidding like anything. The snow's coming down thick. Or do you bet we're not snowed up tomorrow?
Oh dear, I do hope not. If only the pipes don't freeze.
We'll have to keep the central heating well stoked up. Not too good. I wish they'd send the Coke along. You've not got any too much.
Oh, I do so want everything to go well at first. First impressions are so important.
Is everything ready? Nobody's arrived yet, I suppose.
No, thank goodness. Mrs. Barlow's hooked in early, afraid of the weather, I suppose.
What a nuisance these daily women are. That leaves everything on your shoulders.
And yours. It's a partnership.
So long as you don't ask me to cook.
Oh no, that's my department. Anyways, we've got lots of tins in case we are snowed up. Oh, Giles, do you think it's going to be all right?
Got cold feet, have you? Are you sorry now we didn't sell the place when your aunt left it to you, instead of having this mad idea of running it as a guest house?
No, I'm not. I love it. And talking of a guest house, would you take a look at that?
Pretty good. What?
It's a disaster, don't you see? You've left out the S, Monkwell, instead of Monkswell.
Good Lord, so I did. However did I come to do that? But it doesn't really matter, does it? Monkwell is as good a name.
You're in disgrace. Go and stoke up the central heating.
Across that icy yard. Shall I bake it up for the night now?
Oh no, don't do that till 10 or 11 o'clock at night.
How appalling.
Hurry along, someone may arrive at any minute.
You've got all the rooms worked out.
Yes, it's Mrs. Boyle, front four-poster room, Major Metcalf, blue room, Miss Casewell, east room, and Mr. Red, oak room.
I wonder what all these people will be like. Oughtn't we to have got rent in advance?
I don't think so.
We're rather mugs at this game.
They bring luggage. If they don't pay, we keep their luggage. It's quite simple.
Can't help it. Taking a correspondence course in hotel keeping. We're sure to get had in some way. Their luggage might be just bricks wrapped up in newspaper. And where should we be then?
They all wrote from very good addresses.
That's what servants with forged references do. Some of these people may be criminals hiding from the police.
I don't care what they are, so long as they pay us 7 guineas every week.
You're such a wonderful woman of business, Molly.
In the calling of Scotland Yard, crime took place at 24 Clover Street, Paddington. The murdered woman was a Mrs. Maureen Lyon. In connection with the murder, the police are anxious to interview a man seen in the vicinity wearing a dark overcoat, light scarf, and a soft felt hat. Motorists are warned against icebound roads. The heavy snow is expected to continue, and throughout the country there will be a certain freezing, particularly at
How do you do?
Thank you so much. Brother, it's his job, wasn't it? I taxied him up at the gate. Wouldn't attempt the drive. No sporting instinct. You must be Miss Ralston. How do you do? My name's Wren.
How do you do, Mr. Wren?
You know, you're not at all as I pictured you. I've been thinking of you as a retired gentleman's widow. Thought you'd be truthfully grim and unhibbish. And the whole place would be simply crammed with Benar's brass. Instead, it's heavenly. Quite heavenly. Lovely proportions. This is a fake. But this table is genuine. I'm going to love it here. Have you got any wax flowers or birds of paradise?
I'm afraid not.
What a pity. Well, what about a sideboard? A purple plummy mahogany sideboard with great solid carved fruits on it.
Yes, we have, in the dining room.
In here. Oh, I must see it.
Do come and warm yourself.
Absolutely perfect. Real bedrock respectability. But why do away with the center mahogany dining table? The little tables just spoil the effect.
We thought the guests would prefer them. This is my husband, Mr.
How do you
Wren.
do? Terrible weather, isn't it? Takes one back to Dickens and Scrooge. And that irritating Tiny Tim. So bogus. Of course, Miss Ralston, I'm sure you're absolutely right about the little tables. I was being carried away by my feeling of the period. If you did have a center mahogany dining table, you'd have to have the right family around it. Stern, handsome father with a beard. Prolific, fated mother. 11 children of assorted ages. A grim governess, and someone who calls herself Poor Harriet. Poor relation, who acts as a general dog's body and is oh so grateful for being given a good home.
I'll take your suitcase upstairs for you. Oak room, did you say?
Yes.
I do hope it's got a 4-poster. Little chink throws
yet.
It hasn't.
I don't believe your husband is going to like me very much. How long have you been married? Are you very much in love?
We have been married just a year. Perhaps you'd like to come up and see your room?
Ticked off. But I do still like knowing all about people. I mean, people are so madly interesting. Don't you think so?
Well, I suppose some are, and some are not.
No, I don't agree. I think they're all interesting. Because you never really know what anyone is really thinking. For instance, you don't know what I'm thinking about now, do you?
Not in the least. A cigarette?
No, thank you. You see, the only people who really know what others are like are the artists. And they don't know why they know it. But if they're portrait painters, it comes out on the canvas.
Are you a painter, Mr. Wren?
No, I'm an architect. My parents, baptized me Christopher in the hopes that I would be an architect. Christopher Wren, as good as half my home. Actually, though, everyone laughs and makes jokes about St. Paul's. However, who knows? I may yet have the last laugh. Chris Wren's prefab nests may yet go down in history. I'm going to like you, dear. I find your wife most sympathetic.
Indeed.
And really rather beautiful.
Oh, don't be absurd.
There, isn't that just like an English woman? Compliments always embarrass them. European women take compliments as a matter of course, but the English women have all the feminine spirit crushed out of them by their husbands. Something rather boorish about English husbands, don't you think?
Do come up and see your room.
Shall I?
Could you step up the hot water boiler?
This is Monkswell Manor, I presume?
Yes.
I am Mrs. Boyle.
I'm Giles Ralston. Come into the fire, Miss Boyle, and get warm. Awful weather, isn't it? Is this your only luggage?
Major Metcalf is seeing to it.
I'll leave the door for him.
The taxi when it was coming up the drive, it stopped at the gate. We had to share a taxi from the station. There was great difficulty getting that. Nothing ordered to meet us, it seems.
I'm so sorry, Mrs. Boyle. We didn't know what train you'd be coming by, you see. Otherwise, of course, we'd have seen that someone was standing by.
All trains should have been met.
Let me take your coat. My wife will be here in a moment. I'll just go along and give Metcalf a hand with the bags.
The drive might have at least been cleared of snow. Most offhand accountable, I must say.
I'm so sorry.
Mrs. Ralston,
Yes,
you're very young
young.
to be running an establishment of this kind. You can't have had much experience.
Well, there has got to be a beginning for everything, hasn't there?
I see. Quite inexperienced. And an old, old house. I hope you haven't got dry rot.
Certainly not.
A lot of people don't know they've got dry rot until it's too late to do anything about it.
The house is in perfect condition.
Could use a good coat of paint. Do you know you've got worm in this oak?
This way, Major. This is my wife.
How do you do? Extreme blizzard outside. Thought at one time I could make it. Beg your pardon. It goes on like this, I should say, about 5 or 6 feet of snow by morning. Haven't seen anything like it since I was in 1940.
I'll take these up. Which rooms did you say? Blue room and the rose room?
No, I gave Mr. Wren the rose room. He liked the four-poster so much. So it's Major Metcalf in the blue room, Mrs. Boyle in the oak room.
Major?
Sir?
Do you have much servant difficulty here?
We have quite a good local woman who comes in from the village.
And what in your staff?
No staff, just us.
Oh, I see. I understood this was guest house and for running order.
We're only just beginning, and so...
I would have said that a proper staff of servants was essential before opening this kind of establishment. May I ask if I'm the only guest here, with Major Metcalf, that is?
Oh no, there are several here.
In this weather, too. A blizzard, no less. All very unfortunate.
We couldn't very well foresee the weather.
The north wind doth blow, and we shall have snow. Oh, what will the robin do then? Poor thing, I adore nursery rhymes, don't you? Always so dreadful and macabre. Why children like them?
May I introduce Mr. Wren, Mrs. Boyle.
How
Lovely place, isn't it?
I've come to the time in my life where the amenities of an establishment are more important than its appearance. Should I not have believed this was a running concern, I should never have come here.
There's no obligation for you to remain here if you are not satisfied, Mrs. Boyle.
No, indeed, I should not think of doing so.
If there's been any misapprehension, it'd perhaps be better if you went elsewhere. I could ring up for the taxi to return. The roads are not yet blocked. We have had so many applications for rooms that we shall be able to fill your place quite easily. In any case, we are raising our terms next month.
You needn't think you can turn me out now, not before I've tried what the place is like. Perhaps I'll take me to my room with Mrs. Ralston.
Certainly, Mrs. Boyle. Darling, you are wonderful.
I think that's a perfectly horrible woman. I don't like her a bit. I wish she would turn out into the snow. Serve her right.
It's a pleasure I've got to forego, I'm afraid. Oh, Lord, there's another of them. Come in, come in.
Afraid my car's bogged about half a mile down the road. Ran into a drift.
Let me take this. Any more stuff in the car?
No, I travel light. Ah, glad to see you've got a good fire.
Mr. Wren, Miss...
Casewell.
My wife will be here in a moment.
No hurry, got to get myself thawed out. Looks as though we're going to be snowed up here. Weather forecast says heavy falls expected, motorists warned, etc. Hope you've got plenty of provisions in.
Oh yes, my wife is an excellent manager. Anyway, we can always eat our hens.
Before we start eating each other, eh?
Any news in the paper, apart from the weather?
Usual political crisis. Oh yes, and a rather juicy murder.
Murder? Oh, I like murder.
They seem to think it was a homicidal maniac. Strangled a woman somewhere near Paddington. Sex maniac, I suppose.
Doesn't say much, does it? The police are anxious to interview someone seen in the vicinity of Culver Street, wearing a darkish wool coat, lightish scarf, and soft felt hat. Police reports to the effect have been broadcast throughout the day.
Useful description. Fit pretty well anyone, wouldn't it?
When they say they're anxious to interview someone, is that a polite way of hinting that he's a murderer?
Could be.
Who was the woman who was murdered?
Miss Lyon, Miss Maureen Lyon.
Young or old?
Doesn't say. Doesn't seem to have been robbery.
I told you, sex maniac.
Here's Miss Casewell, Molly, my wife.
How do you do?
It's an awful night. Would you like to go up to your room? The water's hot if you'd like a bath.
You're right, I would.
I must hurry out to the kitchen and get on with things. Major Metcalf seems very nice. He won't be difficult. Mrs. Boyle really frightens me. We must have a nice dinner. I was thinking of opening 2 tins of minced beef and cereals and a tin of peas and mashing the potatoes. And then there's stewed figs and custards. I think that'll be all right.
Oh, I should think so. Not very original, perhaps.
Oh, do let me help! I adore cooking. Why not make an omelet? You got eggs, haven't you?
Yes, we've got plenty of eggs.
If you've got any cheap, any type wine, you could add it to the minced beef and cereals, as you say. Give it a sort of continental flavor. Show me where the kitchen is and what you've got. I dare say I shall have an inspiration.
Come on.
Continental flavor.
Isn't he sweet? He's put on an apron and is getting all the things together. Then leave it all to him and don't come back for half an hour. It's going to save a lot of trouble if the guests want to do the cooking themselves.
Why on earth did you give him the best room?
I told you, you like the four poster.
He liked the pretty 4-poster. Twerp.
Giles.
I've got no use for that kind. You didn't handle his suitcase. I did.
Well, had it got bricks in it?
It was no weight at all. If you ask me, there was nothing inside of it. He's probably one of those young men that go around bilking hotel keepers.
I don't believe it. I like him. I do think Miss Casewell's rather peculiar, though, don't you?
Terrible female. If she is a female.
It's very hard that all of our guests should be either unpleasant or odd. Major Metcalf seems nice, though, don't you think?
Probably drinks.
Oh, I think so.
No, I don't. I was just feeling rather depressed. Well, at any rate, we know the worst of it now. They've all arrived.
Who could that be?
Probably the Culver Street murderer.
Don't.
1,000 pardons, I am... Where am I?
This is Monkswell Manor Guest House.
Oh, what stupendous good fortune. Madame. And what an answer to a prayer. A guest house. And a charming hostess. My Rolls Royce, alas, has run into a snowdrift. Blinding snow everywhere. Perhaps, I think to myself, I shall freeze to death. But then, I take a little bag. I stagger through the snow. I see before me big iron gates. A habitation I have saved. Twice I fall into the snow as I come up the drive, but at last I arrive, and immediately despair turns to joy. You can let me have a room, yes?
Oh, yes.
It's rather a small one, I'm afraid.
Naturally, you have other guests.
We're only just starting this place as a guest house, and so we're rather new at it.
Charming. Charming.
What about your luggage?
That is of no consequence. I have locked the car securely.
But wouldn't it be better to get it in?
No, no. I can assure you, on such a night as this, there'll be no thieves about. And as for me, my wants are very simple. I have all that I need here, in this little bag. Yes, all that I need.
You'd better get thoroughly warm. I'll go see about your room. It's rather cold, I'm afraid, as it faces north, but all the others are occupied.
You have several guests, then?
Oh, yes. There's Mrs. Boyle and Major Metcalf, Miss Caswell and a young man called Christopher Wren. And now you.
Yes. An expected guest. The guest who did not invite. The guest who arrived from nowhere, out of the storm. Sounds quite dramatic, does it not? Who am I? You do not know. Where do I come from? You do not know. Me? I am the man of mystery. But, now I assure you this, I complete the picture. There will be no more arrivals, and no departures either. By tomorrow, perhaps, even already, we are completely cut off from civilization. No butcher, no baker, no milkman, no postman, no daily papers, nobody, and nothing but ourselves. It is admirable. Admirable. My name, by the way, is Parvicini. Mr. and Mrs. Ralston? And this is Monkswell Manor Guest House, you said? Good. Monkswell Manor Guest House. Perfect. Perfect.
I consider it most dishonest not to have told me they were only just starting the place.
Everything's got to have a beginning, you know. Excellent breakfast this morning. Good coffee, scrambled eggs, homemade marmalade, all nicely served too. Woman does it all herself.
It sure as there should be a proper staff.
Excellent lunch too,
Corned beef.
but very well disguised corned beef. Red wine in it. Mrs. Ralston promised to make a pie for us tonight.
These radiators are not really hot. I shall speak about it.
Comfortable beds too, at least mine was. Hope yours was too.
It was quite adequate. I don't quite see why the very best bedroom should have been given to that very peculiar young man.
Got here ahead of us. First come, first serve.
From the advertisement, I got quite a different impression of what this place would be like. A comfortable writing room, and a much larger place altogether, with bridge and other amenities, of course.
Regular old Toby's delight.
I beg your pardon.
I mean, yes, I quite see what you mean.
No, indeed, I shan't stay here long.
No, I don't believe you shall.
Really, what an incredible young man. Unbalanced mentally, I shouldn't wonder.
Escaped from a lunatic asylum, I should say.
I shouldn't at all be surprised.
Giles,
Yes,
can you shovel the snow away again from the back door?
coming.
I'll give you a hand. Good exercise. Must have good exercise.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Really, what's an incredibly young woman? Doesn't she know anything about housework? Carrying a feathered duster through the front hall. Aren't there any back stairs?
Oh yes, nice stairs. Very convenient if there was a fire.
Then why not use them? Anyway, all the housework should have been done in the morning before lunch.
I gather our hostess had to cook the lunch too.
I'm sure it's going to be a proper staff.
Not very easy to get nowadays, is it?
No, indeed. Lower classes seem to have no idea of their responsibilities.
Spoiled lower classes. Got the bit between their teeth, haven't they?
I gather you are a socialist.
I wouldn't say that. I'm not red, just pale pink. But I don't take much interest in politics. I live abroad.
I suppose conditions are much easier abroad.
I don't have to cook and clean, as I gather most people have to do in this country.
This country has gone sadly downhill. Not what it used to be. I sold my house last year. Everything was far too difficult.
Hotels and guest houses are easier.
They certainly solve some of one's problems. Are you over in England for long?
Depends. I've got some business to see to. When it's done, I shall go back.
To France?
No,
Italy?
no.
Would you mind not having that on quite so loud? I always find the radio rather distracting when one is trying to compose letters.
Do you?
If you don't particularly want to listen just now.
It's my favorite music. There's a writing table in there.
I know, it's much warmer in here.
Much warmer, I agree.
Oh, hello. Wherever I go, that woman seems to hunt me down. And then she glares at me. Positively glares.
Turn it down a bit.
Is that better?
Oh, it served its purpose.
What purpose?
Tactics, boy.
Oh, you mean her?
She'd pinch the best chair. I've got it now.
You drove her out. I'm glad. I'm very glad. I don't like her a bit. Think of things we can do to annoy her, shall we? We should go away from her.
In this, not a hope.
But when the snow melts.
Oh, when the snow melts, lots of things may have happened.
Yes, that's true. Snow's rather peaceful, isn't it? Makes one forget things.
It doesn't make me forget.
How fierce you sound.
I was thinking.
What sort of thing?
Ice on a bedroom jug. Chilblains, raw and bleeding. One thin, ragged blanket. A child, shivering with cold and fear.
My dear, it sounds grim. Too grim. What is it, a novel?
You didn't know he was a writer, did you?
Are you?
Sorry to disappoint you. Actually, I'm not. Hello.
Hello? Hello? Yes. No, I'm afraid Mr. Ralston can't come to the telephone just now. This is Mrs. Ralston speaking. Yes, this is Monkswell Manor Guest House. Who? The Berkshire Police? Oh, yes, Superintendent Hogbin. I'm afraid that's impossible. He'll never get here. We're snowed up, completely snowed up. The roads are impassable. Nothing can get through. Very well. But what? Hello? Hello?
Molly, do you know where there's another spade?
John, the police have just run up.
Trouble with the police, eh? Serving liquor without a license.
They say they're sending out an inspector or a sergeant or something.
He'll never get here.
That's what I told them. They seemed quite confident that he would.
Nonsense. Even a jeep couldn't get through today. Anyway, what's it all about?
Wouldn't say. Just said I was to impress on my husband, to listen very carefully to what Sergeant Trotter, I think it was, has to say and to follow his instructions implicitly. Isn't it extraordinary?
What on earth do you think we've done?
Do you think it was those nylons from Gibraltar?
I did remember to get the wireless license, didn't I?
Yes, it's in the kitchen dresser.
I got around near shave with the car the other day, but it was entirely the other fellow's fault.
We must have done something.
Probably something to do with running this place. I expect we've ignored some tin pot regulation of some ministry or other. You practically can't avoid it nowadays.
Oh dear, I wish we'd never started this place. We're going to be snowed up for days and everyone is cross and we shall go through all our reserve of tin.
Cheer up, darling. Everything's going to be all right at the moment. I filled up all the coal scuttles and brought in the wood and stoked the arca. I'll go into the boiler next and check the hens. You know, Molly, it must be something pretty serious for them to send a police sergeant trekking out in all this. It must be something really urgent.
Ah, there you are, Mr. Ralston. Did you know the central heating in the library is practically stone cold?
Sorry, Mrs. Boyle. We're a bit short of
I am paying 7 guineas a week here. 7 guineas, and I do not want to freeze.
I'll go and soak it up.
Mrs. Ralston, if you don't mind my saying so, that really is a very peculiar young man you're staying here. His manners, and his ties, and his never brush his hair.
He's an extremely brilliant young architect.
I beg your pardon?
Christopher Wren is an architect.
My dear young woman, I have naturally heard of Sir Christopher Wren. Of course he was an architect. He built St. Paul's. You young people seem to think no one is educated but yourselves.
No, I mean this Wren. His name is Christopher. His parents called him that in the hopes that he'd become an architect. And he is, or nearly one, so it's worked out all right.
Sounds a fishy story to me. What do you know of him?
Just the same that I know of you, Mrs. Boyle, which is that you are both paying me 7 guineas every week. That's all I really need to know, isn't it? That's all that concerns me. It doesn't matter to me whether I like my guests or I do not.
You are young and inexperienced and should welcome any help from someone more knowledgeable than yourself. And what of this phone now?
What about him?
You weren't expecting him, were you?
To turn away a bona fide traveler is against the law. Surely you ought to know that, Mrs. Boyle.
What do you mean?
Weren't you a magistrate sitting on the bench?
All I say that this Paravicini, or whatever he calls himself, seems to me...
Beware, dear lady. Speak of the devil, there he is.
I didn't hear you come in.
Maybe when I stuck to him. Like he went on tiptoe. Like this. Nobody ever hears me if I do not want them to. I find that very amusing.
Indeed.
Now, there was a young lady.
Well, I must get on with my letters. I'll see if there's any warmer in the drawing room.
My charming hostess looks upset. What is it, dear lady?
It's just that everything is rather difficult this morning because of the snow.
Ah, snow. Snow makes things rather difficult, does it not? Or else it makes them very easy. Yes. Very easy.
I don't know what you mean.
I feel as though there's quite a lot you do not know. For one thing, I do not think you know very much about renting a guest house.
I dare say we don't. But we mean to make a go of it.
Bravo. Bravo.
And I am not such a very bad cook.
You are without doubt an enchanting cook. A little word of warning, Mrs. Ralston. You and your husband must not be too trusting. Have you references with these guests of yours?
Is that usual? I always thought people just came.
It is advisable to know a little about the people who are sleeping under your roof. Take, for example, myself. I show up, saying that my car is overturned in a snowdrift. What do you know of me? Nothing at all. Maybe a thief, a robber, a fugitive from justice, a madman, even a murderer.
Oh!
You see? And perhaps you know just a little of your other guests as well.
Well, as far as Mrs. Boyle is concerned,
The drawing room is far too cool to sit in. I shall write my letters in here.
Allow me to poke the fire for you.
Mrs. Ralston, is your husband about? I'm afraid the pipes of the downstairs local are frozen.
oh, what an awful morning. First the police and now the pipes.
Police?
Police, did you say?
They rang up to say they're sending out a sergeant. But I don't think I'll ever get here.
Ruddy Coke's more than half stone. It's in the price. Hello, is anything the matter?
Here, the police are on their way here. Why?
Oh, that's quite all right. No one can get through in this. Why, the drifts must be 5 feet deep. The roads are all banked up. Nobody will get here today. Excuse me, Mr. Paravicini. May I put these down?
Are you Mr. Ralston?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Detective Sergeant Trotter, Berkshire Police. Can I get these keys off and stow them somewhere?
Go around that way to the front door. I'll meet you.
Thank you, sir.
I suppose that's what we pay a policeman for nowadays, going around enjoying themselves at winter sports.
Why did you send it to the police, Mrs. Ralston?
But I didn't.
Who's that man? Past the library window, on skis, all over snow, looking terribly hearty.
You may believe it or not, but it was a policeman skiing.
This is Detective Sergeant Trotter.
Good afternoon.
You can't be a sergeant, you're too young.
I'm not quite as young as I look, madame.
But terribly hearty.
We'll stow your skis away under the stairs.
Excuse me, Mrs. Ralston. Is it alright if I use your telephone?
Of course, Major.
attractive, isn't he? I always admire policemen.
No brains, you can see that at a glance.
Hello? Hello? Mrs. Bull, Mrs. Ralston, the telephone is dead. Quite dead.
It was all right about half an hour ago.
The line's gone with the weight of the snow, I suppose.
Ha ha ha! So we're quite cut off then. Ha ha! Quite cut off. And that's funny, isn't it?
I don't see anything to laugh at.
No, indeed.
Ha! It's a part joke of my own. Shh! Our sleuth is returning.
Now we can get to business. Mr. Ralston, Mrs. Ralston,
Do you want to see us alone? If so, we can go into the library.
that won't be necessary, sir. It'll save time if everybody's present. If I might sit at this chair.
Beg your pardon.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, do hurry up and tell us. What have we done?
Done? Oh, it's nothing of that kind, Mrs. Ralston. It's something quite different. It's more a matter of police protection, if you understand me.
Police protection.
It relates to the death of Mrs. Lyon, Mrs. Maureen Lyon of 24 Culver Street, London, West 2, who was found murdered yesterday, the 15th instant. You may have heard or read about the case?
Yes, I heard it on the wireless. The woman who was strangled.
That's right, madame. Now, the first thing I want to know is if you were acquainted with this Mrs. Lyon.
Never heard of her.
You mayn't have known her under the name of Lyon. Lyon wasn't her real name. She had a police record and her fingerprints were on file, so we were able to identify her without difficulty. Her real name was Maureen Stanning. Her husband was a farmer, John Stanning, who resided at Longridge Farm, not very far from here.
Longridge Farm. Isn't that where those children live?
Yes, the Longridge Farm case.
3 children.
That's right, miss, the Corrigans. 2 boys and a girl, brought before the court as in need of care and protection. A home was found for them with Mr. and Mrs. Stanning at Longridge Farm. One of the children subsequently died due to criminal neglect and persistent ill treatment. Case made a bit of sensation at the time.
It was horrible.
The Stannings were sentenced to terms of imprisonment. Stanning died in prison, and Mrs. Stanning served her sentence and was duly released. Yesterday, as I say, she was found strangled at 24 Culver Street.
Who did it?
I'm coming to that, madame. We found a notebook near the scene of the crime. In that notebook was written 2 addresses. One was 24 Culver Street. The other was Monkswell Manor.
What?
That's right. That's why Superintendent Hogman, on receiving this information from Scotland Yard, thought it imperative for me to find out if there was any connection between this house, or anyone in this house, and the Longridge Farm case.
But there's nothing. Absolutely nothing. It must be a coincidence.
Superintendent Hogman doesn't think it is a coincidence, sir. He'd have come himself if in any way possible. But under the weather conditions, and as I can ski, he sent me with instructions to get full particulars of everyone in this house, to report back to him by phone, and to take what means I thought necessary to ensure the safety of the household.
Safety? What danger does he think we're in? Good Lord, he's not suggesting that somebody's going to be killed here.
I don't want to frighten any of the ladies, but frankly, yes, that is the idea.
But why?
That's what I'm here to find out.
But the whole thing's crazy.
Yes, sir, it's because it's crazy that it's dangerous.
Nonsense.
I must say it seems a bit far-fetched.
I think it's wonderful.
Is there anything you haven't told us yet, Sergeant?
Yes, Mrs. Ralston. Below the 2 addresses was written 3 blind mice. And under those words was a drawing of 3 little mice and a bar of music. The music was the tune of the nursery rhyme, 3 blind mice. You know how it goes. 3 blind mice.
3 blind mice. See how they run. They all run after the farmers. Oh, it's horrible.
So there were 3 children, and 1 died.
Yes, the youngest, a boy of 11.
What happened to the other 2?
The girl was adopted by someone. We haven't been able to trace her present whereabouts. The other boy would now be about 22, deserted from the army and has not been heard of since. According to the army psychologist, was definitely schizophrenic. A bit queer in the head, that's to say.
And I think it was he who killed Mrs. Stanning.
Yes, and that's what I've got to find out from you. As the superintendent sees it, there must be some connection. Now, you state, sir, that you yourself never had any connection with the business at Longridge Farm.
No.
The same goes for you, madame.
No connection.
What about servants?
We haven't got any servants. That reminds me, would you mind if I went into the kitchen. I'll be there if you need me.
That's quite all right, Mrs. Ralston. Now, can I have all your names, please?
This is quite ridiculous. We are merely staying in a kind of hotel. We've only just arrived.
You planned to come here in advance, though. You booked your rooms here ahead?
Well, yes, all except Mr.
Paravicini. My car returned in a snowdrift.
What I'm getting at is that anyone who's been following you around might very know well that you were staying here. Now there's just one thing I want to know, and I want to know it quick. Which one of you is it that has some connection with the business at Longbridge Farm? You're not being very sensible, you know. One of you is in danger. Deadly danger. I've got to find out which one that is. All right. I'll ask you one by one. You first, since you seem to have arrived here more or less by accident. Mr.
Paravicini. But, my dear Inspector, I am a stranger in these countries, and I know nothing of foreign affairs of bygone years.
Mrs.
Boyle. Really, I don't see. I consider it an impertinence. We only just arrived. We have nothing to do with this place.
Miss.
Casewell, Leslie Casewell. I've never heard of Longridge Farm, and I know nothing about it.
You, sir.
Metcalf, Major. Heard about the case in the papers at the time. Wasn't stationed in any book then. No personal knowledge.
And you.
Ren. I was a mere child at the time. I don't remember even hearing about it.
And that's all you'll have to say. Any of you? Well, if one of you gets murdered, you'll have yourself to blame. Mr. Ralston, if I might have a look around the house.
My dears, how melodramatic. It's very attractive, isn't he? I do admire the police, always so stern and hard-boiled. 3 blind mice. Quite a thrill, this whole business. How did that tune go?
Really, Mr. Wren?
But you don't like it? But it's a signature tune. The signature of a murderer. Just fancy what a kick you must be getting out of all this.
Melodramatic rubbish. I don't believe a word of it.
Oh, but just you wait, Miss Boyle, until I creep up behind you and you feel my fingers on your throat.
Stop.
That's enough. It's a poor joke anyway. In fact, it's not a joke at all.
But that's just what it is. It's a madman's joke. That's what makes it so deliciously macabre. You could just see our faces.
A singularly ill-mannered and neurotic young man.
Where's Giles?
Taking our policeman on a conducted tour of the house.
Your friend, the architect, has been behaving in a most abnormal manner.
Young fellows seem very nervy nowadays. Dare say he'll grow out of it.
Nerves. I've no patience with people who have nerves. I haven't any nerves.
No? Suppose that's just as well for you, Mrs. Boyle.
And why do you say that?
I believe you were one of the magistrates at the bench at the time. In fact, you were the one responsible for sending those 2 children to Longridge Farm.
Really, Major Metcalf, I can hardly be held responsible. We had reports from welfare workers that seemed most satisfactory. Eggs and fresh milk and an out-of-doors kind of life.
Cakes, stove, blows, starvation, and a thoroughly vicious couple.
How was I to know? They were very civilly spoken.
Yes, I was right. It was you.
One tries to do a public duty and all one gets is abuse.
Oh, you must forgive me. I enjoy myself greatly.
Strange, strange man.
Where did he come from last night?
I don't know.
Looks a bit of a spiv to me. Makes his face up too. Rouge and powder. Disgusting. He must be quite old too.
And then he skips around like a much younger man.
We'll be wanting more wood. I'll get it.
It's almost dark, and yet it's only 4 in the afternoon. I'll turn the light on.
Where could I leave my pen?
What a horrid little tune that is.
Don't you like it? It reminds you of your childhood, perhaps. An unhappy childhood.
I was very happy as a child.
You were lucky.
Weren't you happy?
No,
I'm sorry.
but that's all a long time ago now. One gets over things.
I suppose so.
Or one doesn't. Real hard to say.
They say that what happens when you're a child matters more than anything else.
They say, they say. Who says?
Psychologists.
All humbug. I've got no use for psychologists and psychiatrists.
I've never really had much to do with them.
A good thing for you, you haven't. It's all out of hooey, the whole thing. Life's what you make of it. Go straight ahead. Don't look back.
One can't always help looking back.
Nonsense. It's a question of willpower.
Perhaps.
I know.
I expect you're right, but sometimes things happen that make you remember.
Don't give in. Turn your back on them.
I wonder, is that really the right way? Perhaps it's all wrong. Perhaps you really ought to face them.
Depends on what you're talking about.
Sometimes I hardly know what I am talking about.
Nothing from the past is going to affect me, except in the way I want it to.
Well, everything's all right. Upstairs. What's this? Drawing room?
Would you mind shutting that door? This place is full of drafts.
I'm sorry, madame, but I got to get the lay of the land.
Molly, what's all this?
Well, that completes the tour. Nothing suspicious. I think I'll make my report now to Superintendent Hogman.
You can't telephone. The line's dead.
What?
It was...
Since when?
Major Metcalf tried it just after you arrived.
But it was all right earlier. Superintendent Hogman got through all right.
I suppose since then, the line's down with the weight of the snow.
I wonder. It may have been cut.
Cut? But who could cut it?
Mr. Ralston, how much do you know about the people who are staying in your guest house?
We don't really know anything about them.
Ah.
Wren wrote from Hampstead, and Major Metcalf from an address in, what was it?
Leamington.
Mrs. Boyle wrote from a Bournemouth hotel, and Casewell from a private hotel in Kensington. Paravicini, as we've told you, turned up out of the blue last night. Still, I suppose they've all got ration books, that sort of thing.
I shall go into that, of course, but there's not much reliance been placed on that sort of evidence.
Well, even if someone is trying to get here and kill us all, or one of us, we're quite safe now because of the snow. No one can get here until it melts.
Unless he's here already.
Here already?
Why not, Mr. Ralston? All these people arrived here yesterday afternoon, some hours after the murder of Mrs. Stanning. Plenty of time to get here.
But except for Mr. Paravicini, they'd all booked beforehand.
Why not? These crimes were planned.
Crimes? There's only been one crime, on Culver Street. Why are you so sure there will be another here?
That it will happen here. No, I hope to prevent that. That it will be attempted, yes.
I can't believe it. It's all fantastic.
It isn't fantastic, it's just facts.
Do you have a description of what this man looked like in London?
Medium height, indeterminate build, darkish overcoat, soft felt hat, face hidden by muffler, spoke in a whisper. So 3 darkish overcoats hanging in the hall now. One of them is yours, Mr. Ralston. There are 3 lightish felt hats.
I don't believe it.
You see, it's this telephone wire that worries me. If it's been cut... Mr. Ralston, is there an extension?
Yes, over in our bedroom.
Try it there for me, will you?
Molly, the vegetables.
Oh,
To understand what I may term as the mechanics of fear, you have to study the precise effect produced on the human mind. Imagine, for instance, that you are alone in a room. It is late in the afternoon. The door opens softly behind you.
Oh, it's just you. I can't find any program on the radio worth listening to. What are you doing?
why is it all dark?
Ladies and gentlemen, intermission. I was so into the play. Okay.